Because of the time that I grew up, I couldn't just wear a tie and a suit. So I got extra degrees in order that I could be on parity with men. And then eventually married a man who believed in equal, that we would share childcare and that we would share trips and that we would have a life in which sex differences wouldn't necessarily interfere with our ambition. Everything springs from fact and true experience. So documentaries, which I landed on, I didn't wake up in the morning and say, I must do documentaries, but it was an appropriate job for a woman in the 60s because not many people wanted to do it. And most documentaries were about the CIA and the president and Hitler and Winston Churchill and the Second World War. I became aware of more people who were not necessarily professionals telling their personal stories, because they could tell it cheaply and quickly. You didn't need film that was expensive. You didn't need processing. You could shoot it and bring it in. You know, if it was about your grandma's abortion, you could do it. And you didn't have to have made a film before or have a big budget to tell a story. So I think a lot of what I get credit for, although I love credit, a lot of what I get credit for is part of the technology and the moving forward of video in this ever-moving forward universe we live in. I have an unnatural curiosity for what people do. I've done films about murderers, and I've done films about people who don't earn enough money to buy food. And this great similarity is terror, and I'm very fascinated by people's terror and accommodation to an imperfect world and trying to make things possible for them, regardless of their mental state, or how difficult life is for them, or how difficult they've made life for other people. I find the evil people as interesting as the kind people. I just find people interesting because I think we're all stranded. Truth is provocative. Provocative doesn't mean taking your clothes off, although I have done those shows too. That's a cheap provocative. Provocative is that something in someone else relates to something in you, whoever you are. And if you sort of put together everybody's fears and doubts, you come up with something, and positive moments, you come up with something that might interest everybody. And sometimes I ask questions and people say, oh, you shouldn't say that. Why did you ask? You know, and I always think a person has the right not to answer. It's a privilege. And if it's too abrasive or too in-depth or stupid, which I can do too, they don't have to answer it. They're free to preserve their privacy. But I think most people don't want to preserve their privacy. I think most people want to tell you their story. And I think they want to lift the curtain. I don't try to hurt people. I try to find out about people. And sometimes that's too provocative for some people. But I can't help that. It's who I am.